Stress is just your inability to solve problems in your life. And the exact opposite of stress is success, which is the ability to solve problems in your life. So the first question I ask people is, who likes problems? And everybody, oh, no, I got enough problems. I don't need more. And I used to say, well, it's not the problems that bother you. It's the problems that you can't solve.
Welcome back to Achieving Unlimited Health. In recent episodes, Dr. Cima has walked us through the physical and chemical pillars of the triune: structure, stability, nutrition, and blood chemistry. But today, we're focusing on the third pillar, the mental emotional side of health, because one principle sits at the center of this conversation. Where the mind goes, the body will follow. And this episode is really about what makes us tick, how we define success, and how our mental direction ultimately shapes our health and our lives. So let's dive into this. I'm so happy to see you again, Dr. Cima. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm doing great, Layla. How are you?
Good. I think that this is a really good time to be diving into this conversation. Just with everything going on in the world and post-holiday, everyone's kind of focusing on their mental health a little bit closer. So I think that this is a great time to have this conversation. So
It is very good.
let's dive in. Absolutely. So, Dr. Cima, I know when you describe the triune of health, you've talked about the three different pillars, but why is the mental emotional pillar just as critical as the physical and the chemical sides?
In today's world, Layla, it's probably more important
I
because
agree.
this inundated mentally, emotionally with stress from the TV. Nothing ever stopping. It's just 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And it was not like that decades ago. So the stress levels today, I just keep on piling up. And, it's really, really tough on most people. And when I first started getting into the mental emotional factor, it's interesting because that's what really helped me focus on how intense that really was. So I just really want to give you a little bit of a backdrop of how I got into it, and then you can ask away with questions. Back in 1980, 81, when I was building my practice, I was going to give talks, and mostly on nutrition. So I went to the night schools in the area, and I would be giving lectures here and there, and to clubs and organizations. I would also sponsor my own talks. And so when I got to it was not a college level course, but it was more of let's say an evening course at the high school. And so I wanted to do one on nutrition. So at the time, the vice principal said to me, okay, fine. That sounds like a great idea. We'll do a whole nutritional talk. So about 5 days or a week or so before, she said, Doc, nobody signed up for the course, only maybe 5 or 6 people. She says, I have a class, a stress class, that there's 50 people that signed up, but the teacher left town. I don't know why the teacher left town at the time. He says, would you like to teach that? So I said, I don't know too much about stress, but, I'll give it a shot. So what I wound up doing was I wound up looking at the definition of what stress was in the medical dictionary, and I said, nobody's going to understand this. And so I went to the first class, and there was at least 50 people there. So I figured, let me just wing it and see what happens. So at the time, there was blackboards, and there was chalk, and there was erasers. So I said, so I started to ask people in the class, I said, what stresses you out? Because you're going back to 1980, 81 now. So you're looking at a good 45 years ago. So people would say I'm stressed out, but they didn't know what they were talking about. So I said to most people, I said, okay, what stresses you out? So within the matter of like 15 minutes between my dog, my wife, my husband, my boss, finances, my kids, this, that, and the other thing, I filled up the whole blackboard with all the different things that people were stressed out over. And that's what really created the whole situation with me, to try to figure out, what stress was and then how to deal with it effectively. Because at the time I was just starting out with practice. I would just got married to my wife. We just moved down to Florida, and financially things weren't going that great at the very beginning. So I had a lot of stress on me. And, but at the time I figured, okay, this is a great class for me to kind of like look back and see what makes me tick. Cause I didn't realize, what makes people tick and, what you can do to basically counteract the effects of that. So that's when I started to basically create a whole course on stress because I realized how important that would be based on the fact that most people have stress. They don't even know what it's about and they don't know how to deal with it. So at the time I said, okay, let me figure out like what's the definition of stress that people would understand. And it simply came down to this. Stress is just your inability to solve problems in your life. That's all it is. And the exact opposite of stress is success, which is the ability to solve problems in your life. So the first question I ask people is, who likes problems? And everybody, oh, no, I don't want problems. I got enough problems. I don't need more. And I used to say, well, it's not the problems that, that bother you. It's the problems that you can't solve, which is the problem with problems. So people would realize, I said, well, when you solve a problem, especially a real big one, how do you feel? I feel great, Doc. I feel fantastic. But then again, when I have situations where I can't solve them, like with a marriage or with my business, then it doesn't feel so good. And so again, there was like, the problem with problems, your inability to solve the problem, which is the problem. So if I can teach people how to solve problems, then that would help eliminate a lot of stress in their life. Because the more problems you solve, and this is the crazy part, the more problems exist. So every day you might have 5 problems, you solve 4 of them, you'll have 8 the next day. So it's this ongoing process of success that leads to like these great outcomes, but it's like you inundated constantly. So if you can figure out what's causing stress in your life and then how to effectively deal with it so you can solve it, then everything gets better and better. Because even if you don't solve the problems, the next day you come up with even more problems. And the problems you have are even more in depth as far as like a marriage goes. Because I used to say to myself, when you get married, how come so many people, and at the time it was, I think 50% of the people who get married get divorced. It's like, that's a pretty high number. And I said, like, why does this happen? And so that's when I start to realize like, okay, these are the things that are essential in life for you to basically do. And if you do them, you're going to be successful. So for 10, 12 years after that, I was studying like how to deal effectively with life and how to make a success out of my family, how to make success out of my practice, how to make a success out of me, and, how to make a success for my patients as well. So I had all these different things that I wanted to do. And that's where I started my, kind of like my groundbreaking idea of like how you deal with stress, because I would go to these seminars and the rah stuff and you come out of there and you feel like really happy and positive. Then you go back to work and you're like, I feel miserable again. I don't know why, but that was the bottom line. So that's how I started. And I started to like study all different things that what made people successful. I took courses. I listened to cassette tapes. I read books, and I finally realized that most people, or I should say that most problems basically have the same, let's say, ways to solve them. So when I was looking at all these people, how they dealt with success, there was always these common threads that always went through that. And some of the common threads that what we're going to be talking about today with you is what we already spoke about. So that's how I started. And I was like totally like immersed in the fact that I wanted to change. Growing up in New York, it was a great experience, but I know I needed to change. I needed to, once I became a doctor, I said, now I'm a doctor. I have to really change. I have to figure out what makes me tick, what makes my wife tick, what makes people tick. So I can kind of like embrace that and figure out what's the best way to handle the situation. So I'll leave that up to you right now. And so we have a lot of different things that we can talk about. It'll kind of blend together a lot, but it's the type of topic that takes, a number of talks to go through. But at least you realize you could be super successful. And that's what I want people to know.
And it's interesting what you said about how you kind of started off with that assignment about writing things on the blackboard in terms of what stresses people out and what makes people tick. And I bet you so many of the same things were reiterated for people because although everyone's situation is different, there's a lot that we're more alike than we are different. So
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people, finances,
Yeah.
significant others. So everyone has such similar stressors that if we all had the right knowledge and ways to figure out how to alleviate that stress, we'd be a lot better overall, you know? And
Yeah.
I know that you've said this for years, and I actually really love this quote, but where the mind goes, the body will follow. So what does that actually mean in real psychology terms or physiological terms?
Easy. Well, basically, what happens is that where the mind goes, the body will follow. I wrote that quote maybe, oh God, it's probably in the early 90s. And because that's what I realized. It was like, what makes some people really successful is because it's their mind. They control their mind. They can teach their mind to do different things. So one of the first things that I had learned is that you have to have a purpose in life, at least one. Yeah, there's many, many more than one. There's probably 4 or 5 or 6 different purposes that most people have in life. They should have, but they don't. And every time you don't have a purpose, that whole portion of your life or that compartment of your life becomes a wreck. It always ends in failure. So the first thing that I realized, and everybody would always say this, all these people that would read their books and everything, got to have a purpose, got to have a purpose, got to have a purpose. But there's a way to write the purpose. There's a way, what kind of purpose you have to have and all the rest. But basically itself, it's like, I'll take marriage, for example, because again, a lot of people see that marriage is not as simple as most people think it is. And it's very, very complex. If you really just get down to, brass tacks, it's really a good way to start handling the problem. So with me, purpose and the definition of purpose is a result or an effect that's intended or desired. So if you look at any failure in your life, it starts out with your purpose. So if your effect or result is not what you want, then you had the wrong purpose to begin with. Like, for example, people get married, and they want support. They want a spouse. They want this. They want that. It's like, no, it's not about what you want in your spouse, which is important. Okay. But what you're going to bring to the relationship. It's like, the best way it was described to me is that, love is not an emotion. Most people think it is, because I could love my wife in the morning. I want to kill her by the afternoon, if you catch my drift. So, love or any emotional state basically is not necessarily, something, good as far as like with purpose, when purpose is concerned. So when I looked at my life, it's like your goal is to make your spouse better. And by doing that, you're the one that has to basically perpetuate that. So I was, when again, we talk about love, it's not an emotion. Okay. Love is basically, and the type of love that I'm talking about is the agape love, where, you're everything that you do for a person, okay, is there to just basically help that person, to serve that person. So it's like, and it's something that just continues. You don't stop. You don't stop loving your wife the next day or whatever. It's a commitment perpetuated by action. And that's what love really is. It's a commitment to your spouse perpetuated by action. So if you're not committed to your spouse and you're just going to argue with your spouse constantly, then you're going to wind up in divorce. And so that's what I always want to do. It's like, okay, now that I know that love is not like just an emotion, which it is to a degree, but if you want to stay married, it's a commitment to your spouse, to stay that way and to be that way for the rest of both of your lives. And that's exactly what it is that you want to do. For example, in that particular case, it's a commitment, based on your actions. If you stop being committed to your spouse, you're never going anywhere. And so that's what happened. So when I learned that, we were just, married for a year or so, or 2 years, and then my children started to come, and then we had 4 children, and now it's like, okay, the family dynamic is growing. Now we have now 12. We have 11 grandkids and 1 on the way. So we have 12 so far. My kids are saying, well, we're not finished yet. So I'm waiting for that. But the great thing is, it's like, All my kids are doing fantastic. Two of them work in the office with me. My son runs the office, and all my grandkids are doing great. And whatever their goal is, whatever their aspirations are, whether it's dance, ballet, hearing, it could be anything. And so, but they're all involved with different sports. My kids make sure that their kids, my grandkids basically, are always just, learning, going to the best schools and making sure that they're getting great grades. So these are the things that we grew up teaching them, and they're now teaching their kids. So it's a great way to continue on. So that's, pretty much the first thing I would say is you got to have a purpose in your life. And that's the result that's intended and desired. As I can tell you, if you don't like what you're seeing in your life, it's your purpose. That's the grassroots. That's where you start. And then from there, you kind of go, on and on and on. But there's a certain way, or there are certain qualities and characteristics of a purpose that makes it either strong, okay, or just you don't have one. And I would say most people that I know, when I ask them what their purpose is, they kind of look at me like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, what's your purpose in life? Because you're going to have to get up every day and be happy. Okay? That's the goal, is to get up every day and be happy. And it's not the easiest thing to do. But if you have a strong purpose, you'll get up every day in a good mood because you know that your life really means something now. And so, like, one of the first things I always tell people is like, if, they'll say, well, what should my purpose be? The first thing your purpose should be is to serve others. That's the whole goal of purpose. It's not like to serve you. It's to serve others. It's like I said thing with my wife. It's like my goal in my marriage is to serve my wife, not expect her to serve me, even though she does, like dinner and things like that. But the reality is that we serve each other. We support each other. We work with each other. And, I'm around my wife all the time. She works in the office too as well. So I see her pretty much 24/7. And it's a way that we've been doing this for decades. So we get used to who we are and what we're doing. And we kind of have fun with it. And we realize that we're not going to be exactly on the same page all the time. But the reality is that my goal is to serve her, and her goal is to serve me.
Absolutely. And congratulations on the other grandchild on the way. I think number 12, you said. Also, the fact that you were able to build such a big family dynamic. And like you said, a lot of that goes from your why and your purpose, and somewhat characteristics that go into your pretty much daily life to be able to create such a dynamic, right? And
Exactly.
at the core of human behavior, what do you think truly makes us tick? On characteristics, or maybe along with characteristics, what do you think really drives our decisions, our habits, and really helps to create those long-term outcomes?
The most important thing too, and we'll get back to purpose too, because that's part of the whole thing, was if you look at the common denominator, of every human being out there. So it'd be like, whether you're male, you're female, young, old, black, white, doesn't really matter. Basically, the purpose of life, just the purpose of life, is to survive. And so with that being said, everything that you do through the course of a day, everything that you think through the course of a day is based on your survival. And so the problem is to try to take that, survival thing that you're trying to base it all on yourself and then spread it around to other people. So your survival basically is really related not just to you, but to the group of people you work with, your family, your friends, everything else around you, because you survive with groups of people. And in order to survive with groups of people, again, you have to get back into the mode of like, well, what's the purpose of the group? Or what's the purpose of, your marriage? And so these are the things that you really have to work for. So, again, it's what was my purpose for being a father? It wasn't just like, oh, I'm a dad now, I'm a big deal, and then that's it. And then I just like not let my kids, understand and do what they, do anything that they want. We took them, we brought them in, we had them go to private school. We had them, we taught them a lot. And you teach by example. Your kids watch you like a hawk, and they start seeing things that if they don't like, or they do like, they're going to mimic those things. And so as my kids started to grow, they started to realize, like, how we worked as a family, how they were integral part of the family, and what their purpose was, and all the rest. And we spoke constantly with that. So my kids are always involved with sports. They're always involved with academics. And we just wanted them to and basically also, we wanted them to grow up in a nice, strong religious background too, as well, because that was the whole crux of everything. And so they're all doing great. They all go to church. They all like have their kids go. They're going to a Christian school. I don't really care what school you go to, but it's the whole thing is, it's gotta be, everybody's gotta be on the same page. So it was like, if I'm going to have my kids go to church, I got to go to church. If I have to, do these things and read the Bible, I have to read the Bible. And so all the things that I'm telling them that I want them to do, we were doing already. So it's that whole survival mechanism and you can't survive as just one. It's just impossible, because we're human beings, and you have to survive on different, I call them compartments in life. And one is, you survive pretty much yourself as far as your health goes and your purposes. And then there's a survival compartment with your family. Okay. Then there's a survival compartment with the group of people who you work with, because you want the group to really become super successful. And then there's also the aspect of, like, okay, financially, how well you doing. So you have to have a compartment in life, for that too as well. And then I remember you talking about you love animals, and this compartment in life based on, like, being, you want to help, besides human beings, you want to help all the animals out there in the animal kingdom. It's not just like one. And so the more purposes that you have, and the more successful you become with each purpose over time, you're happy. And your purpose really has to be, like we talked about, it's got to help other people. Because if it doesn't, it's kind of like, it's almost fruitless. It loses a lot of power and a lot of energy. So that's the biggest thing that I've seen throughout my life, and realize that these are the things that really matter. So that was some of the big things that I had picked up from that.
Absolutely. And it's like, as a society, you putting out good into the world, I feel like keeps good going. Like, you put good out and you help people, and people help the next person. And that's just the way it should be. It's the way society should just be able to
Exactly.
move free.
Yeah.
Not everyone has that mentality, but it would be, I think, a much better world if everyone did.
You're right. It's 100%, because again, if you're not going to be helping people, you're going to want to hurt them. Even in business, it's kind of like, if you're going to give somebody or sell somebody a good or a service or whatever, to me, my thing was like, I want my service to be top notch, or whatever it is I'm going to sell the patient. And I just want that to be that way all the time. And so I want to give them more than they're getting for the money. So with me, it's great, because there's no amount of money that you can put on your health. It's either you have it or you don't. And if I can help a person improve their overall health, it's like I just saved their life. And that to me is great. What you want to do is always, like, if your mindset is to serve people, then whenever you do business with them or whatever you're doing, you're always going to give them the benefit of the doubt. It's not like, oh, this guy's got money, so I can take more money from him. It's got nothing to do with that. It's just like that exchange, that what you give people. And to me, it's like, the greatest thing that you can give anybody is their health. And if you can do that, that's like a service that, money can't buy. You can have 1,000 problems, but if one's a health problem, you only have one. And so I have a lot of patients that come in, and again, there's patients that come in, I got a crick in my neck, and that's fine. But I'm looking for patients that their life is being ruined by whatever it is it's being ruined by. And to get that person and help them, improve them, educate them, it's like, I feel great. It's the best thing. And Socrates said it the best. He says the closest you can ever get to God is to bring one's health to another human being. So I got that going for me every day. To me, it's like, I go to work. Again, I've been doing it for decades. People say, well, when are you going to retire? I don't plan to retire. It's like a concert pianist. You can't stop playing the piano because, well, I'm 65, I'm going to stop playing. You've been doing it for 45, 50 years. You can become phenomenal with it. Why would you stop now? I mean, you want to slow it down a little bit? That's fine. But to like stop your purpose, it's crazy. And I know that a lot of people do that. They'll retire and within a few years they expire. So it's kind of like they lose their purpose, they lose their thrust in life, and they get up every day and it's like, what am I going to do today? Oh, I'll play some golf. What am I going to do tomorrow? Oh, I'm not playing some golf. It's like, it's a waste of time because you just get depressed over doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting that you're going to feel better about it. So this is why this portion of, as far as the triangle goes, it's where the mind goes, the body will follow. I'll give you a quote from my wife, is when the head's stupid, the body suffers. You have that thing going on too as well. So it's kind of like, you want to make sure that you educate the patients. You want to make sure that you care about people and love them and realize that most patients or most people have shortcomings like we all do. And the goal is like, it doesn't matter what the shortcomings are. It matters that you want to try to support and help this person. And you can do that. That's the best thing because you feel good. It may not, the other person may not feel good, but you feel good because you're doing the right thing.
All comes back to, again, your purpose and your why, essentially. And how do you think that, fear-based motivations differ from purpose-driven motivations in terms of stress chemistry and overall health and being?
No, that's a good, because there's two ways you survive, because we talked about survival is the bottom line for everybody. And survival is based on the carrot or the stick. Okay. So if you get the carrot, if you can create a life where you're just always having carrots, that's a heck of a lot better than someone beating you with a stick all the way through the process. So that's the one thing that we educate people on. It's like how to create a compelling purpose so that when you get up in the morning, that's what's on your mind. That's what you want to do. That's what you want to help people. And it's not like where you get up in the morning and somebody's like forcing you to do something, which would be the stick. Or like, I'll give you another example. It would be like weight loss is a big problem in the United States today. Everybody's trying to lose weight. Most people can't do it. And so they look at it from the perspective of, well, I'm going to go on a diet or whatever, but they look at it from the perspective, okay, I got to stop eating this, stop eating that, stop eating this. And they feel like they're getting beat with the stick. And then they're going to be put on all these exercise programs that aren't really necessary and not really working. So you're underneath the gun with the stick constantly instead of saying, okay, you know what I'll do? Let me learn about weight loss and all the rest, and then just create a nice diet slowly and create a nice exercise program that I enjoy doing. So you really just, when I want to go to work out, and like I said, we have a gym right in the office, so it's not a really big deal for me to get anywhere. But it's like, I look forward to exercise. And after doing it for 40, 50 years, I'm still looking forward to doing it. I enjoy it. It's like I go in there, I do what I got to do, and I know it's going to help my health. I eat as good as I can possibly eat. I take supplements. I try to keep myself mentally, in a good posture, a good mood, and just kind of work on all the dynamics, the three dynamics of the triune of health. And the more you do that in the right perspective, it becomes more of the carrot than the stick, because now you're like enjoying life. You're having fun. You can do all the different things you do it. You're not pain, you're not fatigue, and you're not feeling like misery. Well, and again, it's like, when you're young, it's not that, it's pretty easy to keep yourself fairly stable. But as you get into your 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and you start seeing these life-threatening situations that were not under control for the last 20 years, then it becomes really, now it's the stick. When you get into the medical establishment and you have to go in for surgeries and things like that, now it's the stick. And you have no choice in the matter but to go, have the surgeries done, be put on medications, and not sure exactly what's going to happen to you for the rest of your life. Whereas, and it's really, it's scary because I see it a lot with my own patients. Like they're in their 70s, they know they don't have a long time left, and they just, they're afraid of having more surgeries. The doctors are telling them they don't know what's going on. They're giving them like crazy different diagnoses, totally different crazy ways to like take care of the problems. And it's just basically now built on the stick. You're not enjoying anything. You're taking many, many medications. You don't know if the medications are messing you up or helping improve you. So now it's like, you try to like get away with I just have the carrot all the time, but I won't do the necessary things that I have to take care of my health. So you wind up in a situation where you're not going to go anywhere. And at that stage of the game, there's not many other places to go except down.
And I think that you're a perfect example of a successful life, right? And what you've created. So when you ask someone, how would you like to have a successful life? What are you really actually asking them to consider?
I'm asking them to really consider like what their purpose is. They don't know this, but what their purpose is in life and what they really want to do with their life. And if you're really, happy with your life, again, you're serving others. It's like if you're a wife and you're a mom, you're serving your husband, you're serving your children, and in a really good way. So it keeps you really happy. It keeps you motivated and keeps you going.
Absolutely. And why do you think that defining success personally rather than socially is essential to mental emotional stability?
Oh, the two big things that you want to basically do with life is you want to improve like your self-image and your self-esteem. And when you can, like self-image is when you look in the mirror, what do you like what you see or do you not like what you see? And then self-esteem is like, how you feel about yourself. So these are the things that basically, really push you into a really good positive way. And so as long as you can improve your self-image and self-esteem to yourself, you're going to be happy and successful. And some of the ways to do this too, I think we spoke about this one time before. Did we speak about the B plus 2 equals half?
Think so.
Okay, this is really important because this is what frustrates people. This is what gets people really, really upset. And so I put together it's something I literally do all the time. I recite all these different things that kind of keep me motivated and on track. And so in life, you're always doing three things. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are. You're either being something, you're doing something, and then you're having something. So it's a little formula. It's like be plus do equals have. And people like, okay, that's like a nice little, like, simple things to really understand and remember. But it's not that simple because being is your purpose. So it's like if I sat down with you right now and said, okay, what do you want to be? And you said, well, I want to be whatever it is you want to be. Okay, it would be fine. So it would be, okay, this is what I want to be. And then these are the things that I have to do to be that person. And if they're congruent, they're equal the same, then basically from that point on, you'll have a successful marriage. You'll have a successful body. You'll have a successful practice or business, or you'll have a successful relationship with friends, family, or whatever. So and those three compartments have to be congruent. They have to match. So if I'm saying I want to be healthy, but I'm smoking cigarettes and drinking and eating crap and not wanting to exercise, well, if that's what I'm doing, I'm not going to have health. I'm going to have sickness and disease. It's that simple. So so I sat down and said, I went through every compartment in my life and created what I call a battle plan, which basically says, these are all the things that I want to be. Okay. These are all the things that I have to do to be that person. I have to do it. And then I'll have whatever it is that I want. So when I started to do this, it was like, again, I had no family. I really didn't even have a practice. I had just gotten married, had pretty much no money. Okay. And, just dreams. And so it was like, okay, when I learned about this formula, I said, I got to decide like what it is that I really want to be. And then all the things that I have to do to be that person. And to me, it was like, I want to be the greatest doctor in the world, not just a good doctor, the greatest doctor in the world. So what does the greatest doctor in the world do? Well, number one, takes care of himself or herself. That's number one. They write about it. They teach it. They treat it. They do all the different things. They go through years and decades of doing all this stuff because they know that that's what's going to make everything happen. So it's like right now, what we're doing right now is I see so many people suffering because of, let's say, just the typical traditional medicine. Not that traditional medicine is bad. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm saying is that they don't take care of health and wellness. They take care of sickness and disease. So if you want to change the model of what your health should be like, you have to be proactive. So if you're going to take care of your health, number one, some of the things that you have to do is be proactive in your health. So these are things that you have to do. You have to exercise, and not just like exercise, because that's like people, go out and exercise. It's like, well, what do? They go, I walk. That's not exercising. That's walking. Or I do enough physical work to the course of the day. I don't need to do that. That's physical activity. That's not exercise. These are things that you do to take care of your body. And the same thing with your nutrition. And so many people out there lie about all these different things, especially with a lot of functional medicine doctors. They just deal with nutrition. They got, I call it the supplement in the month club. Every month there's a whole brand new supplement. They'll grow hair in a cue ball, do this, do that, do this, do that. And it's a bunch of crap. It's like you've got to treat the body chemically, physically, mentally, emotionally. And if you don't do that, you're never going to be healthy. So it's kind of like, that's what you really want to do. And then when you say have, it's kind of like great because sooner or later you're going to have what you want to have. And to me right now, it's like, I need to bring this stuff. That's why we're even doing these podcasts, to let people know, like, hey, there's a better way. You don't have to suffer and be sick and diseased your whole life. There's a better way to do it. You're going to have to be proactive in it. You're going to have to be part of the program, but you can make everything a lot better. And that's my goal now, is to bring most of this stuff out more to the society than any time else, because after all these decades, I finally realized this is the truth. This is not like something we made up. This is like, what defines health and wellness. I always tell people, I said, and you have to prevent sickness and disease. And that's what the Triune does. In fact, Einstein's great minds solve problems, brilliant minds prevent them.
Uh-huh.
And, Benjamin Franklin said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So you have, and then I can't forget about Thomas Edison talking about the doctor of the future. And that's what really got me excited about becoming a functional medical doctor, because when I graduated school, it was back in 1977, Thomas Edison had a quote: "The doctor of the future will provide no medication, want his patients to the care of the human frame, diet, and the cause and prevention of disease." When I read that quote, I said, that's what I want to be. Except he didn't have a book. There was no course. There was no nothing on this stuff. It wasn't called functional medicine. It was, at the time, it was called holistic health. But I said, that's what I want to do. And so, to be the greatest doctor in the world, you gotta write, you gotta speak, you gotta teach, you gotta study, you gotta try to put things together. And it takes like, not months, decades to really like establish the fact that what you're doing, really works. So.
Absolutely. And speaking about being healthy and living a healthy life, what do you think is the difference between healthy achievement and chronic stress? And at what point do you think that striving becomes damaging?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's, I remember, it's a little tough. Good friend of mine died back in the 80s, and way before his time. So at the service, they said, Tim, we want to live every day is going to be his last, and plan for the future like he's going to live forever. And I said, that's what I want to do. I want to get up every day like it's going to be my last, but I want to plan for the future like it's going to be forever. And that's where you don't get burned out. If you have a purpose, you get up with a reason for living, and you just go as hard as you can and just plan for the future like you're going to live indefinitely. and that was like something that when I heard that, that was really important. At the time, I had my first daughter. She was only maybe 3 months old. I said, this is what you got to do. These are the things that you have to, do and be in order to be a success in life.
Absolutely. And sometimes those pivotal moments that are so hard and at the time become so impactful later on. Sometimes those pivotal moments change something within you that really gives you a stronger purpose or a purpose at all. I know I can relate to that. I'm sure a lot of people have, especially when it comes to loss or losing someone, or any major change in your life can really change how you see things moving forward and how
Absolutely.
you you develop a purpose or how your purpose can change. It's unfortunate that oftentimes it comes from some point of pain, but in long terms, you look back and realize that point of pain actually became the reason why for something great in your life. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and even speaking about that, how do you think that developing grit and emotional discipline actually reduce reactivity and build a resilience? Because even in those pivotal times, you build a resilience
No,
as
you
well.
definitely do. And as long as like, this thing with, purpose that we talked about and just, working at just becoming the person that you just want to be is just a great feeling. You don't get stressed out over that. You get stressed out of the fact that like what you're attempting to do is failing and it just keeps on failing. That's what really causes people to get really stressed out and get upset over life. And then they just kind of lose their, oomph as far as like doing things. They just don't want to do it because I've tried, I've failed, I can't do it, I can't do this anymore. And it's not true. It's like if you create a nice purpose in your relationship with your spouse, and the spouse is on the same page as you, you're going to see that it's like, oh, it's just a work of art, just constantly going and going and going, and it just creates a whole lifestyle that you're just going to enjoy for the rest of your life. It's like being around my wife all the time. Most guys would say, I wouldn't want to do that. I mean, to me, I look forward to that because she's here every day and she's got my back. And, so we talk and, not that we agree on everything because we don't do that. She's just an Italian strong-headed woman. So I have to like be able to deal with that. No, because she's like that. I can't like, tell, well, I'm going to do this and you better do it because she's not going to do it because I told her. So, but it's like we know each other and we know like, how to make each other feel good about what it is that we're doing. And she's always there to support me. I'm there to support her. And, and when you have that, you don't ever get burned out. When you're being successful with your purposes, you don't get burned out because you're helping other people. You're creating energy. You're feeling so much better about that. It's the best way to be. It really is. I would never like ever want to go back and, deal with situations and not be happy with my practice or, my profession or my spouse or my children and everything else like that. I just like everything to keep on going and rolling. So
Mhm. And even speaking about that, how does shifting from a self focus stress to a service mindset change the emotional chemistry and overall well being?
yeah, that's good. I'll tell you a story. When I was in my last year of chiropractic school, I would work on anybody that would be willing to let me work on them. So there was this elderly couple. I don't even know how I got their name, but they lived about 30 miles away from me up in New York. They're out of the app. And so they were probably in their late 60s, early 70s. And so I went to visit them and I treated them 1 week. And then I said, okay, I'll be back next week. I'll work on you again. Said, oh, great, great, great. So I got back to the house the following week and they were standing at the front door waiting for me to come in. And they were like telling me how great they felt, how fantastic it was. I can't believe how much better I felt after one visit. And I'm like, I'm getting really happy about this. So now I'm driving home and now it's like, I can't believe how much I helped them and how happy they were that we even did this. And I was like, I said, you know what? One of these days I'm going to get paid for this. that didn't even enter into I mean, I felt so much better doing what I did for them that the financial aspect was like, oh, someday I'll get paid for this. That's going to be even better. I mean, I'll put the icing on the cake. But the exciting thing was that I felt so much better because they felt so much better. And I just changed their lives like in just one visit. So it's just a really, really happy experience. And every time I helped the person, I felt better than anything else. I always enjoyed being around the people, and I always felt better when you can help somebody. I have patients that'll come in now and I'll say, 20 years ago, you helped me with this, and say, I didn't even remember that, but they do, and it's like, and it makes you feel good. It's always, if you're like serving other people and you don't care about like anything else, but really the service that you're going to give them, you're just going to be happy. If you don't like what you're doing, you don't like your purpose, you don't care about people, then you're going to be stressed out.
Absolutely. And it's so rewarding too when you realize you had such a profound effect on someone and
Yeah.
you don't even realize that you did it. It's just you being who you are, you kind of practicing what you preach in that sense. And I think that it's important too when people gain clarity and purpose, you know, it strengthens their physical, and I think it ties into your triune as well. So when someone gains clarity, purpose, and emotional control, how do you think that that actually does strengthen it and the
Oh,
physical and
that's a good
mental
question. Yeah,
of the
because
triune?
what happens is there was a book I read one time. It was called The Science of Survival, and it was more about emotional states, and it was it talked about that there was a scale that went from 0 to 4, where 4 was being the person would be really enthusiastic, and by down by point 1, it would be grief and apathy, and so all the emotional states in between the excitement and everything else, like the enthusiasm and being down in grief and stuff like that, um, showed me a few things. Because number one, oh, I can tell you this: it's like if I walk into the house, I could tell what my wife is thinking and what emotional state she's in. And if you look at anybody who you can tell when they're there. You can tell by their actions. You can tell by their posture. You can tell by their thoughts. You can tell by like their voice and everything else like that. So every emotional state dictates physically what you look like. You see? So if you like see somebody enthusiastic, like, watching the guys win the gold medal at the Olympics, look at what they were doing. They were like happy, jumping around. It's not like you looked at them and they were depressed. You know what I mean? Because if they were depressed, they'd be sitting back with their head down and all the rest. So emotional states dictate your physical appearance and also emotionally what you're thinking. And then that dictates all chemistry in the body too as well. Because if you're underneath stress, you're pumping out a lot of adrenaline, and you're messing up many other chemicals, okay, in the body as well. So you're affecting the body chemically, and you're also affecting the body physically. So when I see patients, I can tell when I walk into a room with a patient if they're feeling better or not just by looking at them. Because you can
Hmm.
see the expression on their face, you can see their posture, the way they're moving, and all the rest. If they're feeling better, then they feel great, and then you can see it in their posture. Biochemically, you put yourself in an emotional state of anger or something like that, you change all the chemicals in your body.
Absolutely. And speaking about that, we've talked a lot about positive and positivity rather throughout this conversation. But what happens in the body when someone repeatedly rehearses negative thoughts, worry, or resentment?
That's most of my patients. No, it is. It's kind of like, they just get to a point. If you're in chronic pain, for example, after a while, and doctors are telling you, we don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going on. You just get so emotional about it that to break that negative thought is almost impossible. And so it takes a lot of time to like get them to start breaking that negative connection between what's going on with them and how they're supposed to think and act. And that's what takes some time too. Because if you have a patient that has constant headaches, it's hard to get them to start focusing on getting them into a good emotional state. They're not there. They're in pain. They can't be there. And then to have doctors telling them that, oh, we don't know what's going on with you. It's a situation more volatile because they think that now I got some kind of an issue that nobody can help. So you have this constant back and forth of, being concerned. But the more you understand about health and the more you put it into your life, the better you're going to be. So that's why I said the mental emotional side is probably the most critical in today's society. Because, you put on TV, everything is, it's angry, it's hate, it's like crazy, it's like insane. And you don't know what to believe or not to believe, especially with all the AI stuff coming out now. My wife will be on Facebook and she'll go, is this true? I said, hun. I said,
It's scary.
yeah. I said, all I can tell you is this. I can tell you, I said, coming from the old neighborhood there, we said, believe half of what you hear, and believe half of what you see and nothing of what you hear. And so that was it was great because, don't believe anything. Just listen, open your mind and not let it stress you out or anything else like that. Because when you put yourself into an angry state, what happens is that you think like an angry person. And when you think like an angry person, success is not on the table. I always tell people, I said, would you drive with a person who's angry and really upset down a windy road? I wouldn't, because they're going to drive down that road in a way that might kill you and them. So it's kind of it really dictates, how you're going to have to react. And like I said, even when I'm with my wife, if she gets upset, she starts putting things out there it's 2 + 2 = 455, not 2 + 2 = 4. And so it's your whole emotions, the way you think, the way you act are totally changed by what emotional state you're in. So, and if you're really bright, okay, then you become more cunning. You think of a person Hitler, brilliant guy, but because he had an emotional state of anger and constant anger and antagonism, he killed millions of people. For what? It's insane. So that's why your emotional states will dictate how you're going to act. It can also cause all kinds of accidents and traumas in your life that could cause even more damage to your physical body as well. So that's the big thing
Absolutely.
about that emotional state.
Absolutely. And I think when you have that negativity will definitely be apparent around you, and then pushing that out will, I think, breed more negativity as well. But
That's what it does.
I think,
That's what it does. When you start, arguing with people, which is one thing I try not to do, is argue with people. Because it becomes a shouting match. Nothing resonates with either one of you, and it's kind of really stupid and ridiculous to go on that way. So, but that's what happens with most people. They get very upset. They get angry. So the same thing with myself and my wife. If she gets upset or angry, I know she's upset or angry, and I'm not going to continue on the conversation in that respect. Just I'd let it go for now, and then later on, before we go to bed, give her a kiss, tell her, sorry for what happened, and that's it. And so you kind of quiet it down real fast. But that's the way I like to live. I don't like to live arguing or fighting with anybody because you don't go anywhere. And mostly, and it also causes you to be upset for the whole night. It's not like you get it and you're just upset for a few minutes. Maybe you can't sleep that night. You get all emotional about it. And all the anger, so now you're fatigued, now you're tired. You'll tend to now, I don't care. I'll eat anything. Give me a candy bar because I'm upset. Or whatever it is. Or give me another drink. I'm upset.
it takes so much energy out of you.
Yeah,
It's exhausting.
it really does. So I always try to keep myself high on the emotional scale as much as possible and just try to be happy all the time. And just always look at all the positive things that are going on in your life, not the negative. That's what a lot of people do. We have, especially being in Florida, got the greatest weather in the world. So there's so much to be happy and joyous about, and people just get frustrated and upset. And I think the shift is basically not so much. It kind of shifts away okay, the problems that you have with your life, and then creates other problems elsewhere. But you'll get upset over something somebody said. And it's not going to even bother you. It's not even part of your life. Why are you even wasting your time, doing that? And that's what I see a lot of people will take their anger issues and kind of separate them and put them, way above where it should be in your life. And in so doing, it causes all kinds of grief or getting stressed out over listening to the news. Work with the things that really impact you and your family and your business partners and all the rest. And that's what's going to make you happy, getting all that stuff down. And then we have, I think maybe, I'm trying to think. Well, in this office, we have probably 20 plus staff. Okay. And, we all get along great. I mean, I hug and kiss my staff every day. And a lot of them are women. I mean, I kiss the men too, but it's kind of like, no, I enjoy, they're happy to see me. I'm happy to see them. And it kind of says, look, I care about you. It's not just like, what are you doing a good job here and now? You're a human being. You're helping everybody. And then they reciprocate by doing great work. That's the best part. And I constantly hear the same thing from patients. Your staff is great. Your staff is great. Your staff is great. Sometimes they say my staff is better than I am, but that's one. I want to see that. I love when other doctors here, I have them work on my patients and I go in and say, how they doing? They go, oh, he's fantastic. Or she's fantastic. It's like, that's what I want to do that. So we keep on breeding that. That's the way I always was. Always cared about my patients. And that's the emotional thing that we do too with the Triune. It's like when I walk in, it's like I'm going to hug my patient. I'm going to kiss my patient if I have to make them feel like, hey, this guy cares. I remember one time I hugged this lady. She must have been in the 70s. And she goes to me, Doc, that was the first person that hugged me in I don't know how long. I was like, are you kidding me? She says, no. She said, it felt great. But it was like, kind of like, people want that. People want to have like some kind of an emotional contact with people where it's physical and they see that they care. Because that's part of the healing process. That's going to get them to heal better. Because they say, oh, this guy cares about me. Or he cares about my problem. He cares, a lot, so much that he's going to do everything in his power to basically help me. That was my goal.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for this conversation, Dr. Cima. I think that you're always full of such good insight. And I think that today's conversation reminds us that health begins with direction. And Dr. Cima showed us that mindset is not abstract, it is biological. So where the mind goes, the body will follow. And when we define success clearly, choose purpose over fear, and live each day with intention while planning wisely for the future, we strengthen the entire Triune of Health. So be sure to follow the show so you don't miss our next episode as we continue building a complete framework for achieving unlimited health. And until next time, choose your direction carefully and live with intention. And thank you so much, Dr. Cima. I can't wait to talk to you soon.
Thank you, Layla. Talk to you soon.